Good morning and happy December to everybody. Kicking off the last two chat of 2023, which is kind of hard to believe. And always excited for the guests that I have. And today I actually have two people joining me. Klaus Verplank, illustrator, animator, art director, author, lecturer, curator, and publisher of Bang Magazine. And then also Broos Stoffels, designer, and runs an independent press, Aubergine Press, along with Tim Colmont. And he is the designer of the latest volume of Bang. To send through his request, but really want to talk about their partnership on this project. And hi, Bruce.
Hi, Kelly.
I see Klaus is also on. I'm just waiting for his request. So here he's coming through. Hopefully it'll go smoother than it did on our test run.
I'm in. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, super. Yeah, fantastic.
Hi.
Super. So excited to talk to both of you. So I have to, like, full disclosure, I was telling my 15-year-old that my chat today was with two people in Belgium. He was like, what? Like, you must be kind of like a big deal. And I was like, no. It's just, it's an illustrator and a designer. We're going to talk about like illustration and design and publications. And then I started reading your testimonials on your website, Klaus. And I was starting to sweat a little bit. I was like, so let me just read the first one. Everybody knows Stephen Heller. So Bang is the best artist promotion on the 7 Seas, and to do so with such a high level design class makes him a hero. Klaus Verplank earns his place in the illustration pantheon. And I was like, and then I was going down and I was like, oh, Christoph Niemann, Carla Frank, Nicholas Blackman, Stephen Guarnaccio. And I was like, okay.
And now you're sweating. But I'm sweating too, Kelly. This is my first live chat on Instagram. So no, thank you for inviting us. It's really fantastic to talk
Indeed.
to you. Good morning, by the way.
Yeah, good morning. And good morning to you. And Bruce, you're just, calm as a cucumber. You're just like, you guys are crazy. There's you doesn't look nervous at all.
No, I have first one.
So I did a little intro, but just to sort of recap, I mean, I've been following your work, Klaus, and we're going to be talking about Bang. You've been sending me, this is volume 4. They're so creative. The first one when it showed up, it's like, it was exciting. It's like, what is this piece? And then the second one showed up. And I just think in a time when we really don't get print material anymore, to have an illustrator sharing their creative work in this unique way with this oversized publication. So then I got going back on your website to the first one, and when you sort of launch this and you're like going to have a different designer do the piece every time. And then that's where I started to get more nervous, because I was like looking at the designers. I was like, Tim Bishop, is that how you pronounce his last name?
Tim Bishop. Yeah.
And I went and looked at his work, and it's gorgeous. And then issue number 3, Pauline Verheyen.
Yeah. Verheyen. It's Belgian names, Kelly.
I know. I'm really feeling my Americanness right now. Also gorgeous work. And then Bruce, I was familiar with your work. So I just let's just start with you talking about, first of all, your work. And I'm just going to add the accolades of, you and I haven't worked together, but I actually was working on a redesign presentation, and I brought your work in to the presentation, and it was perfect because it's witty and it's conceptual and it's unique. And I think in a time when there's so much happening on social media and people seeing work, like, what is your process, your approach, your style? How do you create such a unique and maintain such a unique approach?
Well, first of all, I have to say that I'm now in business like 32 years. So, and that's why I know a lot of people, the names you just mentioned, that's our people that were on the road with me in the past years. And in 2010, I published a book, a monography, the first class book, which was a sort of overview of the 20 years before I started about in the beginning of the 90s. And basically, I'm a graphic designer. I studied commercial design and photography. And just by accident, by a happy accident, I came into illustration. It was for the magazine of the Belgian Army. It was my military service, and I had to do the design of the magazine. And I started illustrating the magazine, and that's how I came up with the idea, oh, I can make a job out of this. And so I slowly learned the job by doing it. And as I'm a graphic designer who worked in commercial contexts, I'm a conceptual thinker. I know that you don't sell a car by the car. You sell the car by the emotions that are related to the car. A car is not metal. A car is power, is everything we don't see. And so slowly I developed a sort of idea that through my work, I can visualize things that you can only feel and only imagine, not see. And I did this in children's books for many years. But then after 20 years, I felt like there's still a gap in what I would like to do. And that's why I changed basically to editorial work. Because in editorial work, you can put much more ideas and concepts than in children's books, which is mostly a bit difficult because sometimes it's too complex or whatever. And so I decided to focus on editorial. And then I realized that ideas are unique. Everybody can use a certain technique, but the way you think, the way you develop, how you put things to, how you juxtapose things is something that is unique in a way. My mind is different than yours or from Broos. So, and I think that's the focus I have to do in my work. And that was a confirmation for me when I made a book about René Magritte. I made a book for MoMA about René Magritte.
Oh, gorgeous.
Yeah, you cannot see it because I think it's mirrored. No,
it's
Magritte's apple. And when I made the book, I realized that my way of thinking is very much related to Belgian surrealism. And so that's what I try to keep as a style, the thinking. So when people ask me, what's your style? I'll say my style is my way of thinking. And that's what I really keep in mind now as a sort of standard in my work. And then I also developed a certain specific style where I reason, I think about the color combinations. So in that also you see a certain style because some colors come back again. And there's fun in it. For me, it's always necessary. There's some humor in it, even if it's dark humor. There should be a sort of smile in it, a smile in the mind. That's my thing. That's the book I have here. It's a famous book, A Smile in the Mind. Yeah. I love that book. And that's my standard. I want to create a smile in the mind. That's how I try to do it. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so interesting because earlier this year, I spoke with Broos Stoffels, illustrator, who also has a background in design and editorial. I think there's something that really comes through in having that experience and understanding kind of that visual storytelling for editorial. And I think with your style too, I think wit is the perfect word that I use. I don't like to use cartoony because I think it's way more sophisticated than that. And it's interesting you bring up the color palette because again, when I was working on this redesign, I was like, the color combinations were really different. And that's something I looked for in this project I was working on. So I was able to bring in these pieces and like you had like pink and green, but done in a sophisticated way, not like the, Lily Pulitzer preppy sort of pink and green. But how is he pulling off this pink and green combo, but it doesn't feel, it feels elevated.
Yeah. But I love to limit myself. Like when I work on a book or when I work on an illustration, I decide that I will only use 3 colors. Whatever happens, it should be only these 3. And then I try to combine things that I intuitively wouldn't choose. like a rose and a warm red. I wouldn't do this, but when seeing this on screen, it can become something very great, and then I do it. Also, it's a bit crazy, but I look at my Instagram profile, I look at my website, and I always try to fit in the colors I use for new work, that it will fit in my social media and everything I show online, so that there's not like a big change there suddenly. Slowly, I might integrate a new color, but basically that it's sort of basis, like colors that are like a bit mine colors, I could say. Of course, they're not mine, but I imagine that these are mine colors, that blue, that rose, that brown, that green. So that's a bit how it works.
Right.
Because creativity emerges from limits, and I try to really limit myself. Yeah.
I agree. And I think that's one of the things I love about publication design is that you have those limitations. And I think I'd love to have you follow up on that, like your design approach when, do you prefer to have more limitations, or you prefer to have just like blank canvas?
More limitations, the more the better.
Yeah.
That sounds crazy. The only limitation I don't like is the time limitation sometimes. Yeah. But it can work because you have to make decisions.
Right.
In fact, that's the biggest struggle. I also see this. I teach also here at the Royal Academy in Antwerp, and that's what basically the most students struggle with is making decisions. They say, "I'm stuck," and I say, "No, you're not stuck. You're afraid to making a decision. You don't want to choose, so that's why you postpone the decision, and that's why you give the feeling that you're stuck. But you're not stuck. You're just pushing away choices, and the choices is a choice is feeling uncomfortable. It makes you a bit afraid, which I constantly have. Even if I work digital, it's like a sort of fear, always choosing colors and so on. Yeah.
Right. I like that approach. So Broos, you in like to just I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on this sort of limitations or design approach, just not with Bang, but just sort of big picture.
Right. Yeah, I'm a graphic designer, so I look for limitations. Basically, I need an assignment in order to work. Someone who gives me an assignment, a frame to work within. And I think without, and I'm not like a free artist who can start creating whatever. I need like a format to work within, and that's where I feel most comfortable. And in the case of Bang, this was actually I got a lot of freedom from class because every time for another designer, and actually the only thing that was limited was a format, which is, as you have seen, quite big and could go anywhere. And in the end, he even decided to add more pages so we could make it.
Yeah, because it was a post-corona edition, so I said I have to make a bigger one, then because people had to wait 2 years for a new one, so I added like 8 pages. Yeah, and the other limitation is my portfolio, bros. I give them a certain limit of my portfolio, and that's the package you have to work with to make the magazine. That's how it works. Yeah.
Beforehand, you said take a look at my whole archive, and so I did, and then I started looking for themes within. And links, and then sort of like curating your portfolio myself, I'd say, before we went back and forth of making other choices. So I think I always need this collaboration and dialogue with a client or another creative to really get to do what I think is best. Because I think my own decisions is not really final. I really need a second eye or a second mind to really look and check what I'm doing. Of course, I have to make some decisions, but it's not like I'm creating like a style within my own realm. I always feel like I'm working for a client, and so what I make goes all over the place. I think every project is unique, and I create new things every time.
But still, I think you have a style, bros. That's why I chose you.
Yeah.
You work a lot for one of my favorite illustrators, and Lucas Verstraeten. Yeah? and you designed a book with him, and that's how I saw that how you play with type and image together, and that's what I noticed, and I said, okay, I can get this guy for the new bang. And another limitation is that the more bangs I publish, the more difficult it becomes to find an original concept, because every designer has the freedom to develop a certain concept for bang, so from scratch. But yeah, of course, the purpose is not to repeat something, so to find something new. And I think now we are number 4. So the more we have, the more it will be like a challenge to find something new. But I'm
really,
quite...
Yes.
Sorry, Kelly?
Have you seen the We Present magazine produced by WeTransfer?
I think that's a while ago, no?
Yeah,
They're on their, I think their 3rd round, and basically, so Liv Seidel, who's the editor, selects 3 designers around the world and gives them the content very similar to your approach with Bang, and then each one, just that's the only the format and the content, and it's fascinating to see what 3 different designers do with the same content in order. So, but let me go back to Bang. So I just want to get clarity. So Broos, for you, I mean, I can imagine too, because I love the, you know, the restraints, and I went into design over fine arts. I remember at the school that I was at, you do your freshman, you apply in design. I said, if I don't get in, I'm not going into fine art, because I don't know what I would do with just you know, share on a canvas or whatever, just create. I like the communication and the problem solving and the limitations. So, but taking this project, like, were you given free range of all of Klaus's work from the past, since the last version of Bang, or did you sort of look at the work and then Klaus, did you give like, these are the pieces I want represented? So I'm curious about how the selection, the curation of the images went about.
Well, I can start because I give Broos a package.
Okay.
So I start from, let's say, the pictures that have been published in the previous edition. That's the end, and then we start with a whole new portfolio. So, and that was like a portfolio for about 2 years, I guess, because I didn't publish anything so far. So it was a lot, not Broos? Yeah, it was a lot. No?
Yeah, as you said, the latest one was before Corona, so I think we started working together about a year ago. So it was 2 or 3 years worth of images.
Wow.
I think we had 150 illustrations, something like that, no?
I remember seeing it all together. Well, your site, as it's we were all ordered, but
yeah,
we made a couple of more spreads which were killed in the end. Yeah, there's very much to it, and layers and nice colors and textures, and so really nice things for me to play with. And Klaus builds them up thoroughly in Photoshop, so I could easily like interact, and I even had the freedom to make like new compositions or ask if it would change according to which color I would add next to
so after the first tip is that Broos makes groups. He groups like illustrations, like this could be a team, this could be a team, this could fit together, or in terms of content, or in terms of colors, or in terms of a certain metaphor I use. There are many metaphors that come back from time to time, so that could be like a sort of connection. So we have different approaches, and then as Broos says, I eventually can add backgrounds or make certain parts larger for his composition. That's what I do, but I try to avoid this. But if it's necessary, I can do that. So that, but I don't never influence. Yeah, I give a little bit of feedback, but I try not to influence too much what combinations the designer makes. That's something that is totally out of my control.
So 150 pieces, the format. So then, I mean, I assume then you're going through the images, you're creating these pairings, and then like client, like how much time did you have to then create? And did you do the whole thing and present the whole thing? Or did you share like, this is kind of what I'm thinking for this grouping? Like, what was your collaboration?
First of all, looked for, like Klaus mentioned, previous designer all at a team, or looked for a certain approach to design their edition. And after a while, I started looking for contrasts in Klaus work. So I really like this folded format, and I thought that, yeah, this of course is an image, but if you fold it open, it becomes something else. And I thought I could play with that. So I turned it around and then I really like inverted the picture and played with this composition. And then I thought throughout all the pages, I could add like more contrast, but juxtaposing like left and right. And then I felt that I had a strong concept that could work throughout a couple of pages. And then to convince class and to make my first design, I made a couple of examples and then went to him before showing like the final thing yet, of course. So then we started talking with a couple of spreads before us, and from there it went very well. I think, as I said, I had a lot of propositions, a lot of designs. So then we could like make selections and class could
narrow down, yeah,
and see what
sometimes I have to advocate to have a little bit more illustrations in it, because sometimes designers want very, very limited. I said, oh my God, I have 24 pages and I only have like 10 illustrations. That's not possible. I need space for my money. But yeah, but that's the ping pong we do. That's usually, I look at my point of view, but I also look at the point of view of the designer, of course. That's something that is really important. But what I like is that, for example, basically designers work a lot with type, but what Broos did here is he also integrated a sort of illustration within the illustration. So this is the outside page, and then you have the inside page. And so you can really play with the whole design and not only with typography or just composing something in a page. You can also make a new illustration from the illustrations by putting them together. That's what I like about this project also, and by collaborating with designers. Also here, like in this page, you really feel that it's like a sort of there's a sort of depth in this spread. Yeah. You can see it? Yeah. Yep. And that's basically because of the design, and that makes also, and that's something I would definitely want to say. The whole purpose of this thing is that I want to see my illustrations in a new context, getting a second life. That's something that I really, well, how can I say? I always work in a context, and the context is basically the interaction between what I do and what is happening around my illustrations. So, and in fact, what I try to show at Bang is the importance of the context where the work is shown in. If it's on screen, if it's in a magazine, or what, it's different. And yeah, it's a sort of group project, because it's also a showcase for the printer, it's a showcase for the paper maker. Mm-hmm. So everybody is like really collaborating to make something really beautiful, and I never stand alone in my work. That's what I really want to emphasize. As an illustrator, you're never alone. You're connected to people who work with your work. And that's what I learned from Christoph Niemann. I once had a long conversation with this guy, and a really super guy. And he said, you also have to look from the viewpoint of a creative director or an art director to your work as an illustrator. How would you imagine your work arriving on the desk and then work with it? That's something that you really have to imagine all the time. And that's what I really do with this work. For me, it's like getting on the other side of the, how do I say this, the chain. I don't know how to say this, but yeah, I think it's very essential also that you realize that it's always connected with something. Right.
Right. I love that, because that's, the way that we approach design is we don't design like an opening spread until we have the imagery, because we want the design to imagery. So I think that makes so much sense. And so what is it like for you in the role? So most of the time, as an illustrator, you're getting an assignment, you're getting those constraints, you're getting that story, you're creating, you're sending it off. But in this project, you are the publisher, the art director, the editor. So what's that, what's that change of hats like?
Well, it's a kind of reminder of as I said, the beginning of my career, where I was a creative designer in a commercial agency. So I love print, I love design, I love typography, I love photography, but I cannot do it all. And I really focus on illustration. But I have a lot of books here about everything that is related to graphic design, because it's a fascinating world. And where I teach, it's also about interactive design. It's about editorial design. It's about typography. It's always come back again and again and again. So for me, it's like, it's a fun project, of course, but being and the publisher and the promoter and the director and going to the printer to control the prints, yeah, it gives me really a good feeling, because, as I said, it's like a total project. I can do everything from beginning to the end.
Right.
And it's a hobby. I could say it's really a hobby, but it keeps me fresh and it keeps me alert from everything that I have to keep in mind in my work. I mean, all the satellites around me that so, and also I like to work with young people. That's why I choose young designers. Each time it's like, yeah, young people. Also, I work with students, and it's giving, but also getting back a lot when you work with young people. And that's something that I want to promote young people. Yeah, that's something I like to do. As you said, you went to look to the graphic designers that work. So I'm very happy that you did that. That's in fact the purpose.
Well, and I think that that's a really important thing, you know, in thinking about editorial and print, because, you know, everybody's like, oh, print is dead, print is dying. And I think, you know, there's fewer and fewer. I mean, there used to, like, publishing used to be really sexy, right? And everybody would want to get into that. And I think it's such an interesting kind of field and kind of projects working with magazines. And so that's a really important element that you're bringing to the field with doing this project, is bringing in younger designers so that they can see how interesting it is to work with editorial, work with illustrators. I know, you know, for us, that's like some of the designers after they've left working here, and then they'll say, oh, I really miss working with illustrators. I don't get to do it. You know, we get to work with people all around the world, and that collaboration. And I also think, to go to the point you're making about like taking these different roles, there was one period I worked on a project where I was the editor, and it really made me more compassionate for the editors that I work with, because as a designer or an art director, you hear the first response like, oh, I don't like that, you know, I don't like the color of that illustration, or I don't like the expression of that photo. But then when you're in the editor role, you realize, oh, they're getting the letters that are like, you know, really nitpicky, and they're, you know, really good editors are supporting their creative teams, and they're advocating for, you know, that expression. And so I think that's really big.
You know, in the first edition, I sent it out with a baseline, Bang magazine, because art directors are humans too. Because I really sometimes, I think that you sometimes have a very difficult job, and I really realize that it's very important to look at both sides, and not only from your desk and send it out and then forget about it.
Right.
I also am a creative director of another magazine, which I don't publish. And I realized how difficult this is, really looking for the right illustrator, for the right color palette, for the right content. It's very instructive for me to do that, because I can relate this also to my own work. So I would like to do this more. And I also do art direction for animation movies. So I try to learn from looking at all the sides of the work.
Right.
Yeah.
And so going back, so you launched this, the first issue was 2018? No.
Probably, I can't remember, 2017, this one.
Right, I love that one. That is in my studio somewhere. Been digging, where did that go? How did you decide this format? Because I think as a designer, it would be exciting, but also kind of daunting to sort of, and I love, Broos, how you talked about, you thought about this, you know, the fold and the interaction. And so you're almost like you've got these spreads in a way. And then when you open it, you've got just such an expansive space. But it can't be cheap to produce this. So I'm curious about how did you make the decision to do this oversized publication versus the more traditional, like postcards or print mailers?
Can I reply, Broos? Broos, it's okay, I reply to that? Yeah.
No.
So in the beginning, like I said, I started in 2010. I decided to go to editorial, and I went and I decided to go to New York every year. And in the beginning, I had my book, the class book I just showed. And then I said, okay, I'm going to postcards, like everybody does postcards.
Yeah.
But after 2-3 years, I realized I have to stand out from this. Also, I followed a course with Charles Hively about 3x3 magazine, about how to promote yourself as an illustrator. And I learned some things there. And I must say that my whole career, I realized that I'm a sort of brand. I come from commercial, so I think a little bit like that. And so I really started thinking about how can I make a difference in being seen and being seen there, because everybody goes there. So how can you stand out from like what everybody does? I can't really remember how I came up to the idea to make a tabloid, but at the first edition, I can tell you this was sponsored by the paper maker. So I got the paper for free, but they got a lot of copies as well to show to their clients. Yeah. And then the printer said, okay, you know what? We're going to use this as a sort of showcase of our qualities of printing, because it's uncoated paper, but the colors are super bright. So it's a special technique. So the printer said, okay, you know, I'm going to do a special effort for you. I'm going to use some copies for my promotion. So second one, win-win. And then the designer, they don't get paid a lot, but they get a lot of promotion as well. So win-win-win. And then my work is also shown. So I thought, it's 4 times the win.
Yes.
And that's how I decided doing this. And I said, I have to I have to invest in something. And I decided to use the budget I usually use for illustration competitions to put into that.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because you can focus really, when you go to an illustration competition, it's like really a little bit of, you have a chance. You don't know if your money is going to, So I said, you know what? I'm going for 1-2 years. I'm going to do that. I'm going to use the budget to launch this. And then it went to, I got really, really good reactions. And so I said, now I have to go on. I cannot stop after one issue. So second, third, and then Corona came. And then I said, okay, let's take a pause. And then now I relaunched the 4th edition. And so basically it's like an investment, but I think as an illustrator, you have to invest in your promotion. Right. And I get really good feedback. Really, people react to it and start collecting it. That's something that is a human thing. And I like the size. I really could imagine something like a big format so that you have really space to do something. So a tabloid, and I think we decided the size based on the paper we got. I think we could have 2 pages out of one big sheet, and that's how we came to the format, and that's now how it's decided. Also, it has to be possible to send it by post, so it cannot be too big when you fold it. Blah blah blah. This kind of
it goes in an envelope, and I mean, you have achieved all those things, and I think that makes so much sense because you know, we submit to award competitions, but we can get one piece that gets, you know, denied from one group and then a gold from another. It's so hit or miss. And I've been a juror, as you have, on so many different award competitions. And you just know some of them are really organized and really thorough, and others, somebody has, 1,000 pieces to review, and, you know, how much time are they going to spend? So I will say, I mean, it's been very effective, because when the envelope came for this one, you know, it's like there's this like little excitement. It's like, you know.
Well, thank you, but that means that I have to go on.
You have to go on. You have to go on. And so it makes me wonder, like, if the printer's invested, do you get to start then playing with finishing techniques like die cuts and varnishes and, you know, special fold-outs?
Yeah, that could be the next level. Let's say, it's also, I have to be a bit vigilant about the budget I use for this, but we can think about this. Yeah.
Do you stay on budget? I'm terrible about staying on budget when it's a self-promotional piece.
Sorry?
Do you stay on budget? Because I know for myself, I'm terrible staying on budget when it's a self-promotional piece.
I try to stay on a budget. Yeah. But if it's necessary, I go over the budget, because I don't want to frame at a moment that it really gets going, and then I have to invest more. But
Right.
I get so much nice feedback that for me it's like it's a fun project. It's okay. It's a little investment, but um, it's gives me so much. It gives me also a reason to go to New York because I have my luggage, 100 copies of the bank in my luggage. So yeah, it's a trigger for me. It pulls me out.
Right.
It pulls me out of the house. It pulls me to connect with great guys like Broos.
And that's also, I mean, you're so, to get to the promotional, like you are so good about that. Because when you've come to New York, you've always emailed me and I'm just like, no, I'm in Albany, but now I'm going to, get down to New York. And so somebody had asked in the chat questions, can you tell the name of the course again that you did with Charles Hively?
Ooh, I think it's, I don't know. I don't know if Charles does this. It was in London, and it was like how to promote yourself. It was like a sort of really straightforward title. It was a workshop, but maybe they can check with Charles and write to 3x3 magazine and see if it's still possible to follow that course. It was a one-day course, and it was really interesting because he showed emails he got from illustrators and how it went wrong and how to write a good email. So I really picked up a lot of points I have to pay attention to. That's something that was really, really valuable because Charles was before art director and creative director as well, and now he's publisher. So he has a lot of knowledge. So that was really, for me, a wake-up call. Yeah.
That's
And,
a great, I know we get a lot of emails with no illustrations in the email.
for example, yeah.
And so, it's just, so Broos, what do you do for your promotional work?
That's a good question. Yeah, I'm currently working on a Christmas card, which I send to my clients every year, which is the biggest thing I do every year. I think it's just a kind thing to send each other best wishes at the end of the year. But besides, I'm building my portfolio, of course. It's only 2.5 years now I'm working independent, so I slowly like building and sending out some work. Sometimes I approach a client who I like to work with, and actually that sometimes works because I don't always feel confident to really approach like a new client, but that's actually a way of getting to know people, which is actually the best thing. And also I publish some self promotion or self initiated projects. Like I just launched a publishing house with a friend of mine, Tim Coleman, who I'm collaborating with on illustration zines. So these are things that I just want to make, I create, but don't feel like that this should belong to a client or something. So I really keep it in housing, and I'm the only one together with Tim, like collaborating and finishing it up. And this is actually a way to show what I'm able of to people who might get that in their hands and then maybe give me an assignment, which actually is a way how it goes. People like Klaas, who picked up a zine from me and Lucas, which is another very good illustrator from Belgium. So I did the graphic design for a lot of his work, and really like the collaboration of typography, illustration, and that's something self-initiated. But then a guy like Klaas picks it up and gives me a sort of assignment in the same context. So that's a very long answer to say that I don't have a master plan, but I sometimes approach a guy.
So can you talk a little bit about Aubergine Press? And, so you've launched that with Tim Coleman. Did I have the name right? And I'm curious. So I was looking at on Facebook sort of some of the pieces that you've published, and I'm going to be ordering the whole because I'm obsessed with mini golf. Every summer, my family goes, to Cape Cod, and my younger son and I, we wanted mini golf every day. And my husband's like, what? We do not need to mini golf every day. And we're like, yes, we do. And so you created, so this is a self-published piece, right? That you did about mini golf?
I'll just get it. Just a second.
I'm just like, what is this piece? And I love that, you know, by doing a self-published piece, you're allowed to show how you would work with type and illustration. And then you get this project like Bang, which is kind of a dream project.
Exactly. Well, the thing with Aubergine is that Tim and I both had ideas of making publications independently, but we needed, well, we talked about it and went vice versa, and we've been each other client in a way for a while. But we needed some moniker to really publish it or bring it out, and then we joined forces. We thought it would be nice to start like a small independent publisher. And one of my ideas or concepts was Hole. So this is the thing, like a little zine about mini golf indeed. I stumbled upon this text by Jonathan Hybert, who's investigating how art movements influence golf course design throughout the ages.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
Based on this text, I started like designing 18 holes, like a common mini golf course, and I thought it would be nice to really publish it into a zine. And I brought it all together by really punching a hole throughout the whole thing.
Putting a hole through it.
Signed a small gap in text, but inside the holes come all together throughout these illustrations.
So fun. So, and yeah.
Scorecard to collect your goals. And I really wanted to Riso print it because it really adds this coarse texture. So I looked for a good printer in Brussels, where I live, that could produce it, and printed it all in plain green. And now it's been out for 2 months, and I got some really good response. It's really nice. It's something that's lived in my head for long time, and then I didn't know where it would get me, but it's really nice to see that a lot of people seem to like it. And I sent one to Jonathan Hybert, the author already, but also to people who found it on Instagram, and I shipped one recently to India, to Mexico, to the USA as well. So it's really nice that people seem to pick it up and like it.
What was the print run, Broos? What was the print run for this book? How many?
Only made 100 copies.
Oh, very limited.
Exactly. Yeah. But this is also the thing I like about these small independent publishers, that you can really focus on making an edition, and when it's gone, that's it. But then create an artist book, like a collector's item. But they're all numbered in the beginning, and the publication I made with Lucas is now also underneath the flag of Aubergine Press. So it's really like, play field where we can do whatever, Tim and I. Because this Sunday, actually, we're collaborating with Simon Lene, a Brussels illustrator, and we're making a plotter print. It's like a print made out of pens. It's like plottering, like a CNC machine would do. We're launching it Sunday at an event in the Old Continental Hotel in Brussels. So we limit ourselves only to like editorial design, but also want to publish posters and maybe even merchandise. I'm thinking of a Aubergine cookbook at the moment.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So Klaas, I might get back to you about that.
You see, it's a win.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to say something, but I lost it. That's you hear that Broos works a lot with illustration, and I really like. That's what I really noticed when I started looking for a new designer for the Bang. I think automatically I pick up names where I look at work, and I see when I see a lot of illustration integrated in the work, that's something that I really that pops up, and then I note the names that interest me.
Yeah.
So far, it's all Belgian people, but I wouldn't mind going abroad. So, but like this one, the Pauline is an ex-student of mine. So that's an alumni. She's an illustrator as well, and I really liked her thinking. She was like one of the best students I had in my career so far, and I really wanted her to challenge to do something like really as an illustrator designing, because they also design in my course. So that's what I liked about the idea that it is an illustrator who's design a magazine about illustration. So that was her thing. So
well,
and,
they get experience that you're talking about of understanding how their work is used and how that the designer. So
and Tim Bishop, who did this one, he makes basically art books. So books, really beautiful produced books. You know Tim Broos, he's like a high level designer and of art books. And I said, okay, let them now make a newspaper, a tabloid, like something totally different. So that's how I try to challenge the designer eye. Ines Cox, who did the first one. She's a very famous type designer.
Okay.
And so she's basically with type. And I said, okay, a type of designer who makes a magazine, how will that become something? So that's how I try to think when I select the people. It's not just a designer who makes a design. No, I try to challenge the designer as well. In the case of Broos, maybe he was a little bit in his comfort zone because he works a lot with illustration already, or not. Or you're in your comfort zone, Broos, or not?
Yeah, of course. I really like to use big type, and in the beginning I thought it was, of course it's a showcase for your portfolio, but the class encouraged me to even make it bigger and really make it collaborate. So I felt like I was really comfortable doing this and using the big coolest and making it pop like we did.
That's so interesting. So we've been talking a lot about print, but I want to make sure we also touch on your animation work, because you go on your website, you have the animated pieces sprinkled through. And, I was looking at the one with the guy with the suitcase, and, what that brings to see that little figure and how you animated his walking. But what is your approach with adding motion, and how do you think it differentiates like static illustration?
Well, I have an animator sitting here in front of me. So I have a studio. So we work together. She's not here now, but we are partnering for like 8 years now. And so she's an illustrator as well, but an animator as well. And so we found each other in the crossover in animation, because she loves my work and she loves to animate my characters, which is sometimes a nightmare, because I don't design elbows, I don't design knees, so you have to put them somewhere if you want to make a figure walk. But we're sitting face to face, and so sometimes I adapt it, or sometimes I change it a little bit to make it possible. But I learned from her that animation is more than just a movement. You really have to add to find an added value. So I remember that during the pandemic, we had time to work on our self-promotion and do some new animations. And then we went through my portfolio and then to my website, and then we selected things that could be animated. And sometimes it was like obvious for me. Oh yeah, she said, but if this moves, it will not do anything at all. So she selected really the small gifs that you see on our website and our Instagram. It's really an interpretation from an animator on my illustrations. So it's like, also there, I give her the freedom to do what she wants with my illustrations. But sometimes, of course, we get commissions that the client wants an animated version of my illustration, like for the New York Times. They really want it also for the digital version. So then when I develop the ideas, we already collaborate and think about what could be the animated version, what could be the added value in animation. So that's how we basically work. And by the way, I can do a little self-promotion. We are launching our studio in January. It's a Pomidor Point Studio, but we're gonna do a launch campaign. Sorry.
No, that's great.
Yeah. So we really want to stand out like a sort of identity, because I think we have something unique together in the way we make animations, and that's another project I'm gonna launch now with her. So the website is ready, and so we're gonna send it out in January to the world. Yeah.
Cool. Is there ever like a time like she brings in animation and it changes the sort of the personality? Like I just think again that little character, like
yeah.
the walk is so distinct, and then the suitcase just sort of comes out. I mean, there's definitely like an added narrative there with animating that piece. Yeah,
maybe can I show this maybe to the here on Instagram? Can I show this on my website, or would it be interesting to show it, or what can we do, or is it not technically not possible?
Character, let me see if I can.
Maybe I can try to show it so that the listeners or the viewers see what we're talking about. Where is it? This guy. Here. I have it here. Can I just? Oh yeah, you have it there. You have it. Yes. So yeah. So the assignment was an illustration about slow traveling. So the static image is like just a long luggage. So this is the illustration. But then when we think about the animation, then we said, why can't we not put it in the context of an airport and make the luggage even longer? So there's a sort of surprise element. So he comes into the scene, while in my illustration, he is already there. When it comes in, you think, okay, what's happening here? And then suddenly you realize this is so big. So that's the cliffhanger you have to add as in an animation that you cannot do in illustration. That's the frustrating part of illustration. Sometimes it's the good part, because you don't have to show what happens before and what happens after.
Right.
And that's something that is sometimes better, because then you can leave this out of the story. But in an animation, you cannot do this. You really have to think about the continuation. How do you end this? How do you stop this? Even when you make a GIF, how can you make it feel like it's really turning around and it's not really a cut? But that's something I really, really love, because when I make an illustration, I think very filmic. I think like something that is like a sort of slice in time from an action that happened. That's why all my work is so physical. I never do something like more abstract or more decorative. For me, it's all about actors, humans doing something, something weird, something that looks, first of all, on the first view, it's like, oh, it's normal. But then in the second level, you see, oh, no, it's not. It's something weird happening here. That's a smile in the mind I talked about. So, and then when you have these kind of physical elements, you can easily animate them. That's what is so fun about this.
Yeah. You always have that in mind, Klaus, like a possible way to animate, or?
I cannot say always, but as I said, when I make an illustration, for me, it's something that is like an action, and that's frozen, that you freeze at a certain moment. So basically, it's like a sort of animation, yes. Yeah. So yeah, I see here now one of my latest illustrations is a guy walking on balancing. So on what moment do you stop the movement to make it the strongest movement, the strongest? So that's body language then. And in animation, you also have to take care of body language and the way a guy walks. That's sometimes so very funny that we discuss how will he walk, because the walking cycle is super difficult. It's a lot of work. Right. And so it defines a character. It defines an emotion, and that's something that is a lot of work. Yeah. I love that insight about your approach, that you're sort of, a moment
in time.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
Again, I was talking about using your work in this presentation yesterday, and that was I said, this whole sort of approach to the visuals in this magazine is cinematic. It's, you know, it's
Mm-hmm.
different moments. And I didn't make that connection of like
Mm-hmm.
why your work sort of fit right in so perfectly. Your,
Mm-hmm.
sort of your
Well,
approach.
in the beginning, you said, how do you define your work? How do you come to this style or this? It's a bit that. And
Yeah.
it's also an heritage of my work as a children's books illustrator, because in a picture book, you have 12 pictures, and these pictures have to tell a whole story. So you really have to freeze the pictures at the right moment and try to continue and try to make sure that the invisible connection between two images is imaginable by the reader. That's
Right.
something that they have to really make a sort of in-between in the mind of the reader. But this distance cannot be too long. You have to really take care of, is the reader still connecting this and this image? Is it not too far? Is it not too long? That's storytelling, of course. And
Right.
that's also what I do a bit in my work here. That's so that's the sort of the school I did on my own, the self-taught school I did. Yeah, self-teaching. Yeah.
That's so great. This has been amazing to talk to both of you. So Bruce already talked about, you have some events going on. I wish I was in Belgium, because you also, Klaus, have a studio. Is it a studio opening this weekend where lucky people get to come and buy posters and
I have a big sale. I have a big sale. I have a lot of things, printed stuff. I moved 2 years ago from Bruges to Antwerp. I live in Antwerp now, but my studio was in Bruges. That a lot of people know Bruges. And there's still a lot of things there. And I thought, how can I can move everything, but what if I create a sale for a good cause? And so, yeah, I hope people will come, because it's a lot. It's posters, it's postcards, it's books, it's magazines, it's yeah, it's a lot. So yeah, please come tomorrow and Sunday. Yeah, whether if possible. Yeah, and it's really bargain prices. So it's the best way to have an original Christmas present.
Right. The information's on your website, and I just want to thank you both again. It's been amazing to meet you both and talk with you. And next time you're in New York, I'm getting my butt down to Manhattan.
I just wanted to say I'm coming to Albany. I'm gonna email you again. I will.
Oh yeah,
emailing you.
I'll be shocked if you come to Albany. If you come to Albany, we'll close the studio for the day and host a special event.
Super. I will do that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, thank you, Kelly. It was really a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much.
So great. Yeah. Great weekend.
You too. Sorry?
Exactly. That was really nice. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're very welcome in Belgium too, you know?
Of course.
Broos, bye. Kelly, bye.
Bye.
See you next time. Bye.